That's me in the very beginning. Now I am a baby and getting zoomed from my mom to my birthday. I don't remember a lot about my younger life, but I remember it was fun and I felt so safe. My mom and dad always happy. I guess my mom's sister was mad that my dad was so great, so she called the police and said he hit my mom. We were all reading and they came. I heard my dad yelling, "There, no way!" My mom was crying loudly. Some lady took us away. The court said my parents abused and neglected us. They only loved us. The caseworker lied. I never saw my parents again. I'm still hoping one day they come. I am a victim of CPS and so are my parents. We need to find justice in all of this madness for all of us that are being abused. It's not fair. Every kid I know has a mom and dad. I know they miss me. I bet they fight every day for me to come home.
Don't get caught like us. Know your rights.
All right, everybody, welcome to CPS Victims, Hunting for Justice. We are live Friday night here, and what a special night this is. We talk about all these weeks about what can we do to make sure that we get out there and get the message out there, and what can we do to do this? Well, tonight I have the answer. I mean, I have a woman here who has stopped at nothing. That's not really proper English, but that's all right. This woman has been focused. She's been run down. This woman has been thrown out of her profession. This woman has done everything and given everything short of her life, just like Miss Nancy Schaefer, and she's still fighting. Tonight, we've got Miss Connie R right here with us. Let's bring Connie out. If I can hit the right button here. Sorry about that. I'm a little shaky here. Connie, how are we doing tonight?
Hey, good. How are you?
We're good. We're good. We have Melissa with us. I know that you know Melissa, and then we got our law enforcement guru, Herbert, in the back here. We'll bring him out in a moment here. He has any sort of law enforcement questions, we hit Herbert with that. So it's nice to have him on the scales with us too. So what's going on, Connie? You got all kinds of good stuff. I seen you on TV the other day. What do you got going on?
Well, so finally, after 6 years, I was fully exonerated of the fake crime that they convicted me of. They sure did drag me through it. They ruined my life. They stripped my whole livelihood. They ruined all the professional relationships I had with lawmakers. And, they did some pretty dirty work for me just because I stood up for a parent and her daughter. And so I am working this past couple weeks. I've been working on preparing a federal malicious prosecution lawsuit against the evildoers. And I've done some federal litigation in the past. And so I do have some history and some knowledge about how to best do it. And so I'm trying to be very, very careful. It requires a lot of facts to show the sort of the twisted plot. However, because I lived it, it's really hard for me not to make it sound more like a John Grisham novel than a lawsuit. It's very tempting because what they did was crazy. And I can't even, and for those who have a little bit of knowledge about law, one of the things that you do, especially for civil litigation, is you go try to find another case that's like your case somewhere so that you can quote that law, refer to that law, try to overcome your immunities with the prior case law. And honestly, I cannot find any place in the whole entire country where an attorney was prosecuted on a fake crime that was trumped up by the district attorney and the CPS attorney and the local detective. So it's a pretty arduous task. I met with one attorney today who's very experienced and talked to him. And, he said I needed to tone down some of my vitriol. Imagine that.
I mean, that's hard, right? It's so
yeah,
hard to
it's
do.
like it's a little hard to tone down vitriol when the story is really about what they did to your life. But I am going to work on that. The claims are malicious prosecution, fabrication of evidence, denial of substantive due process, prosecutorial misconduct, selective prosecution, or vexatious prosecution. So we are going to name. I had 6 defendants named. I think I'm going to whittle it down to the 4 most egregious actors. And so but that means I also have to relive it, right? And anybody who's prepared any type of federal litigation, you have to relive the whole thing. You have to reread the transcripts. You have to pull out all the nasty evidence that you had against them in the first place.
Right.
And yeah, so that's what I've been real busy on. Besides, I've been really sticking my nose in the state legislative procedures.
Yeah, I saw that too. I saw that.
Yeah. So and
they
here's,
cringe, right? They cringe when you come around now because what the hell do you have to lose, right? Like you're just out there, like there we go.
Yeah, and I was a sort of a citizen activist before it was super cool, way back in 2008. And I worked really hard over the years to build relationships with state lawmakers and went down and sat in their offices, spent time talking to them, educating them. And then DCS goes down there and, tells them I'm a felon. They're gonna strip me of my law license. They've already stripped me of my law license. So they go down and badmouth me. But I'm just like, I know my facts. I know my story. I write it out. I'm professional. I stick to the facts, and it's 3 minutes when they have to listen to me. So,
I mean, you're like a superstar living the typical scenario of a CPS case life. I mean, like what you just said there is, everything that you said is exactly as if it would be half the cases that we hear.
Well, I say if Donald Trump took represented parents in CPS cases, they would do to him exactly what they did to me, right?
It's the truth. I mean, it's just the power that they have, the money that they have, the don't care that they have. Like I'm in full belief that they're funding these state governments off of this Title IV funding. I mean, there's no doubt about it, because how is it that these states are getting surpluses now, where 2 or 3 years ago they didn't? And the only thing that's changed is the amount of adoptions that they forced through, or the amount of foster kids, or like those type things. I mean, and you live it. You come right out and you're like, here we go. I mean, from taking families in that were on the run, like all of these things. I don't know what you can and whatever you can't say, but like that's it. But you have the same story as everybody else.
And they did that.
Special. You're like, this is what they do.
Well, they did the same things that they do to everybody else, which is they do all this secret behind the scenes stuff that they never even tell you about. But in the criminal world, it was one step worse. And I know, because I've represented so many parents and I've seen what CPS does, and they can't charge you. They're not charging you with the crime, but they basically make up what they allege is a crime, right? They're not trying you criminally, but they make up stuff that they allege is a crime. I mean, in my case, there's very exact statutory language that describes what the crime was. And the DA had to extricate some of that language to be able to make a crime.
And what do you, when they do that, when they start making things up about you, I think this will be perfect for everybody that's out there, because we've all had it against us when we hate these cases. First of all, the difference between your criminal case and then the CPS thing, when you're involved in it, they're finding people guilty before they're even going to criminal trials, or they should be writing these criminal trials out, right? Like, and letting them hear what they happened, because it's not fair that these people are found innocent, the case dismissed, all of these things. Oh, it's a misunderstanding, but yet you've still got your rights terminated.
Well, I would say the one thing about me that is not as bad as parental rights cases is I didn't lose any children.
Right.
Okay. I mean, I risk losing my freedom. I don't have a criminal history. So I didn't suspect that they would be able to lock me up for very long if they were able to get a conviction. However, I do want to tell you this, and I'm going to be perfectly loud and clear about this. They were going to put me on 2 years probation and lock me up for 30 days. And I'm going to tell you, they wanted to lock me up for 30 days so they could poison me, because the DA had come in and asked for 48 hours. And then the judge came back and said 30 days. There's no reason in the world why a 70-year-old woman who has never, ever, ever had a crime in her whole entire life to spend any time in jail on a non-violent crime. I mean, there are people with serious drug crimes who
Right.
never spend a day in jail. So
Who
they were going to,
Who was the 70-year-old woman?
me.
Oh, you're not 70, Connie. Come on, really?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so 30 days for like a 2 years probation, 30 days. Yeah, I mean, what did they do to Nancy Schaefer? Right, like that was
Right.
it. They want to shut you up, and they had their opportunity to take you, put you in a cell, turn their heads, walk away, and suddenly you had a heart attack, or you slipped and fell into your head, or something like that. What is now? Like, how is now with everything? I mean, you're really out there now, so it's kind of hard to make a move on you now, I would think, right? Like, people are paying attention. So
yeah. So, when they gave me the fake crime, they just summarily suspended my license. They didn't care. I mean, the way the court system is, and I've said this before, and while I was practicing law, I had to couch it with a certain amount of deference, but the whole system is so rigged, right? I mean, I tell parents and families that all the time, but it's so rigged because the Supreme Court controls who can practice law and who can't practice law. And when they think you're causing too much trouble, they're going to get rid of you. And so now the latest thing, a couple months ago, they filed this petition to say that I was a substantial threat of harm to the public. Like, I'm a substantial threat of harm to the public.
Yes, since you go, right.
And the only people that they were going to call to testify against me were the judges, the DCS attorney, the attorney general, all of them who've created these fake crimes against me.
Right.
And so I'm like, I'm just not dealing with them anymore. I'm going to find a different way to live my life and to do what I need to do. And, so they're not going to let me walk back in a courtroom. They're just not going to.
Right. I mean, is there anything on the horizon? I know that there's starting to pass laws saying that lawyers that go to school online are starting to be able to practice. Is there anything that you see in the horizon that might bring you back into the courtroom and get you to come around and?
Well, I'll tell you what. Well, so here's what I am going to do. And I've been working on this platform and I don't quite have it launched yet, but I'm going to do case coaching. Okay. So I will take you, let's say if you have a case and you feel really scared to go into court. I mean, I can take you and interview you, get all your facts in line, get all your discovery documents in line, make your witness list, get your subpoena list in order, tell you exactly what needs to be done so that you can prepare that package to take to your attorney and just say, just go do this, right? Because even just being attorney, honestly, there's so much time wasted sitting in courtrooms, continuances. I mean, to be more productive and use my brain, because I know so much about what is going on now. I've got so many different forms I've already made up. I've got all different kinds of discovery questions, helping people get their own discovery in line. So I'm going to case coach. That is one thing. The other thing is I'm just going to set up the platforms to do more education. I've done a few sort of training sessions with Vince Davis in California, and I have those preserved and just really put those out there as training platforms just to help people be more prepared when they go into it. A lot of people who contact me, they tell me that they found me through YouTube, even though I don't have, I mean, I have like 300 videos, but in YouTube world, that's not that many.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I mean, yes, this day and age, that's nothing. I mean, look at what Vince does, right? Vince pops up videos like no tomorrow. I mean, you can't get around it without seeing him on here. And you do have the best presentation, I will say. I've seen that firsthand myself too. Your presentations are hands down, and that's the thing too, is education. Education is where we need to win this fight against CPS, and I've been a huge advocate on that, because people don't defend, they don't fight, they don't do anything if they don't know what it is that they're going against. So we got a bunch of people, we have millions of people up in arms here saying, hey, they got our kids, bastards, kidnapped and all this stuff. And then you got 100 million people standing around going, what are these mad people screaming about they got their kids? They don't know. So what do we got to do to get these people on board with us? I mean, there's the parent side. There's these people who don't want their kids taken. There's stigma. I always argue this. The stigma is disgusting. That's why I design all this apparel, because, and I was one of those people. If someone came up to me and short of getting CPS out of their mouth, if I even allowed it to get that far before I turned away, you know what I mean? I'm like, these people are trash. They're terrible. Get them away. They don't deserve it. So like, you educate, you change the stigma, and then you activate. And that's what you need to do that's my opinion. And that's what we try to do for AbolishCPS.com. Like, I make stuff like this little kids t-shirt here that says property of my mom and dad, stop CPS corruption. Like, we have CPS Punisher hoodies. I have a whole Nancy Schaefer line, like who killed Nancy Schaefer. I have all of this stuff because I want people to get out there, start wearing like apparel. That way people, a woman's in the shopping mall, been depressed, locked herself in her apartment for 10 freaking years because she lost her kid, doesn't have friends, doesn't have a person in the world, but she'll see someone wearing something like this and be like, hey, where'd you get that? Maybe have a conversation for the first time with a real person in a long time, because that's what's happening to these people. That's why we can't get them out in droves. So in your opinion,
so I will say, I used to say that somebody within 6 degrees of separation of your sphere has been affected by CPS. I now say within 3 degrees. Okay. So, and I truly believe that because, and they may have even had a good experience. It may have been a foster that adopted that worked out good, but I truly believe within 3 degrees of separation, everybody knows somebody who's been affected by CPS after all this time. So whenever there's an opportunity, of course, Connie, whenever there's an opportunity for conversation, I bring it up. It's part of, because people say, what do you do? And that's some of the first stuff that comes out of my mouth. But, I think that people need to, the people that do know about it and are working within it, they've got to gain the confidence to say, oh my gosh, my family got caught up in CPS and, I'm trying to help educate people, just help people understand what's going on. Okay. So that's one part of it. Just everybody spreading the word to 2 or 3 people. Okay. Just in your day-to-day life. I built my law practice on a rule I called, the 7-2 rule. So my rule was every single week, I told 7 people what I do, and I tried to have a sit-down conversation with 2 of them. Okay, so that's how I built my whole entire law practice. I didn't advertise. I didn't spend a lot of money on advertising. I don't care if I was at the grocery store or at a kid's game, or I just told 7 people every week. And, we need to do that as a team and say, we're just going to mention it to 7 people a week. Even if you go into other, now that we have Facebook and we've used Facebook as a tool to start to collect people with a common interest, we now need to spread out and look for other Facebook groups that are maybe similar, but not quite their interest, like maybe some that are there's Facebook groups now for everything, right? I mean, so just to kind of, I don't want to say invade, but just to kind of dip into other areas of Facebook, like I'm in a group now that's former foster children. Of course, they already know the problem and I engage with them. But, let's say it's a community group, every state. So in my state, in Tennessee, we have 95 counties. And one of the things that I have done is start dipping into the community groups of the counties all across the state. And I will just maybe post one of my reels or, just post a note or just something about, everybody, needs to know about CPS and to direct them. So we need to, as a community, start taking that, stepping outside of our space, because we've done a pretty good job of over the past 6 years, 5 years of collecting us, right? And starting to acknowledge people. And so the 7-2 rule, everybody needs to do. So I'm taking it a step further. Of course, I'm, very involved politically I belong to a conservative political organization. I reach out to the conservative political organizations across the state and give them notices. I am writing for a conservative newspaper that's online that has a pretty broad circulation of probably 30,000. Cool. So I'm writing articles. I know somebody else in one of our family advocate people from Facebook, she got actually signed up with Newsbreak, put herself in Creative Commons and, writing good stories. So, that's just where we go next, right? Now, okay, with all of that said, I'm going to say this. You are absolutely right. People, when they first hear about it, they think, oh, that parent must have done something wrong. That parent must be bad. What did you do? What did you do? So the next step that we have to do is get this money issue out there, right? The amount of money that even our state legislators don't know about, and this adoption bonus money and this adoption entitlement money. The adoption entitlement money, which is the post-adoption money, I call it the secret welfare program. In the state of Tennessee alone, it's $12 million a month of our taxpayer dollars that doesn't go through the budget. It goes directly out to these people. Nobody in the General Assembly talks about it because they don't have to put it into their budget. Now, and I did an open records request for all the adoption bonus money and what they're doing with it to CPS. They have ran me all the way around the bushes to get this, and they've now told me they will have it to me by April 1st, which I kind of doubt that they're doing. But we just need to we need to reach out there like little spiders, and just go to the next level.
We got to irritate them. We need to keep poking and let them know that they're not getting away with things. They're not, keep calling. I keep telling people in my groups, don't try to call your senators, like the people that are working for the federal side of it. Call the people in your town. Start with the local people and start poking them. Like some of them, maybe they'll end up being like Hockley or, like Josh Hockley, like he wanted to be a big shot one day. And, like he started small, and he had to go through the motions. So get these people in your town first. Start educating them, because a lot of these people in their towns don't know what CPS is, so give them something to run on, like do things like that, get it out. Because I've written thousands, maybe even 100,000 letters since my situation with my daughter has gone on. And I bet you I've gotten 10 letters back in response. It's a very tedious thing to do. And it's not very fulfilling. You're like, every day it's like you hope you're going to go to the mailbox and there's going to be balloons and I did it and a stamp and a certificate and all this crap. And there's nothing. And there's still nothing years later, but you keep doing it, But you know what? If just one person gets enough in their head to take that to the Senate floor somewhere or just into the town hall, then that's enough, because we got further than you can get, So like, that's what I tell these people. Don't get upset. Don't look, this is not a quick I figured when my situation first happened, I'm like, I'm the only person in the world that this has happened to, I immediately rip open the phone book into Google and all this stuff. Of course, Vince Davis, sure thing, I'll do him. I'll get this, and then, I meet them, they're all nice and, da 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 da, and out of my range, but still good people and, help me along with, like whatever. But I thought that I was the only person. I'm like, the government's got to see that this is a farce, like there's just no way. I'm waiting for the American flag and the parade and all this stuff to come flying in and, grab my kid. I mean, my wife and I thought it was not a joke, but it was like, hey, we got the weekend to go do something. We haven't been able to do this in 3 years, because we were like, what? This can't be real. But it is. It's very real. And it sucks, because you take it from that first moment to now, where now I'm in the Supreme Court in the state of Maine doing mandamuses and these type of things, trying to do anything I can to get my daughter back, and for nothing myself. Like the state dismissed every charge that was against me, every one of them, and that's what they based my entire case on. So like, it sucks because this American flag stuff and these freedom fighters and everything, they're nowhere to be found. Where are they? We need to get them too up to the front lines with these people, I want to start. I've been trying to get groups together, like biker groups and things like that, with maybe some lawyers, some ex-police officers. So when CPS is going to these houses and they're showing up with the law enforcement, well, guess what? Just like the ones that, like the funeral riders that go for the soldiers, same thing. Well, here comes a bunch of Hells Angels with some lawyers and some police guys too. They're going to make sure that this kid's getting taken out of this house right, because enough of this intimidation, enough of all these we know their game. We know how to play it. Time's up. Let's go. Let's move forward. Like you've had your time, my time, a lot of us, Melissa's time, she's been in this for a long time, has been the research. Like, where do you step? How do you get to this to connect these dots? Like, we've paved a way for enough front runners to come rushing up. I mean, you've got to be exhausted. How many years have you been fighting this? I've only been in this for like 3.5, 4 years. Melissa's been in this for a long time. Herbert's new to this, but he was an ex-police officer. But you got to be freaking exhausted seeing there's no day that's a good day. Your kids are constantly being taken. You're not getting them back. There's a 12% reunification rate. And then here's the question: Title IV funding based on reunification, 12% reunification rate. How do they get trillions of dollars?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I'll tell you, first of all, I will give you a little history. So law was a second career for me. My family was in the restaurant business. We had a rock and roll and very successful gourmet restaurant. And honestly, I was in my 30s before I decided to go to law school. And I was just like, we got too many cooks in the stew here. My brothers were both there, my mother. I just decided I'm just going to go to law school. Everybody thought it was a joke. And I went to night school and worked and had another business on the side. And I got out and I was 42. And I adopted kids from Russia. I mean, I just took a whole bunch of changes in my life. And I was a prosecutor for a while, a district attorney. I prosecuted child abuse and domestic violence. And then in 1997, I went out on my own. And for some reason, and I guess God just does this, right? But I ended up with some DCS, CPS cases fairly quickly. And I met some awesome people. And I started learning just what a terrible job they were doing on both ends of the spectrum. Sometimes they wouldn't take the kids they should take. And then, of course, they took kids they shouldn't take. And I will be very honest, within about 3 years of doing private practice and doing that, I became extremely depressed. And I had a family, my kids were adopted. So we had engaged a family counselor just to kind of help me understand adoption and work with the kids, because they were 5 when they were adopted and knew they had a history. And I just called up my family counselor one time. I just went over to see him and I just sat down and I just said, Tony, I just can't do this. This is just, I can't sleep at night. I'm so worried about these people. I just don't know what to do. And he said, Connie, they call it empathy fatigue, and people who are in a helping profession, they can go through this process, and here's some of the things that you need to do. And honestly, just labeling it for me was really important and kind of helped me recenter myself. And then the other thing was, after a certain period of time, I really just devoted myself to this, and I won a lot. Okay. So I had I fell in love with the people that I helped. And I mean, I am still very close to some of those families, and I worked really hard. I mean, I would get expert witnesses. I'd spend hours on the phone with expert witnesses. I worked super, super hard. And then in 2012, I had cancer. I thought I was going to die. I didn't die. And so I had spent a lot of time just thinking about my life. And, you know, I really believe that we all have to find our spiritual gifts, and then we have to devote them to God's work. And so my spiritual gifts are encouragement, advocacy, and persistence. I'm sure they were the same spiritual gifts of Joan of Arc, because nobody with any good sense would take those three things on.
Nice.
And I just commit those every day, and I just ask God for that direction. So, you know, I could quit. I'm just going to tell you, I could quit with what they've done to me. And I mean, I spent every penny of my slush fund, so to speak, my rainy day money. I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars, okay, just have been drained for me in this process. And I could have blown it off so many times and just said, screw it. It doesn't affect my family. I'm going to go on. But you know what? I have kids. I have grandkids. I have very, very close friends who have kids. I have seen this get worse and worse and worse. And people don't have the tools and the education and the wherewithal to stand up to this because of how exhausting it is. So I just thank God every day that I have the energy to get up and do it. So far, so good, guys. I'm still here.
You're doing amazing.
They haven't put me under the ground yet. So I'm sure if they could burn me at the stake, they could have figured out how to burn me at the stake. They would have done that already. But yeah, it's terrible. What's going on is terrible. Yeah. And let me tell, I'm going to go ahead and just share with everybody I think Tennessee, which is truly supposed to be a triple conservative state, it's really become the planet of the apes, because what we are doing with kids in Tennessee for profit is so frightening. And the Tennessee legislature is now going to pass a law for state taxpayer paid at boarding schools for at-risk teenagers, which means they're going to lock up all teenagers if they get pregnant, or if they're absent, or if their grades get behind, or if you touch drugs. I mean, if you fall off the scale just one little iota, if you're not a freaking Eagle Scout in Tennessee, you're going to end up in one of these boarding schools. So it's really bad.
They're making more and more of these shows about these boarding schools too. These things where people think, I don't know if you saw the program. That's one that we talk about on here. It's crazy. And where is CPS, right? Where is CPS with all these boarding schools? We had a good friend of mine on yesterday, Bo Rupert, who is an advocate, and he fights the Green Hill School out in Washington. And where are these people to help these kids? It's like they got pulled out of society already, got reefed from their parents, and then here they are, boom, put into a more torturous situation when they're supposed to be learning how to, recover from their trauma and moving up. And again, where are these people to help these people? Because this is the thing too. These kids need this help. This money that they're spending on all this other stuff, statistics show that, and we already know this, these kids are the ones that suffer the most. Like, I'm a parent. I will see my daughter again. I will have my daughter again. My daughter has a lot of work to do once this day comes. Like, she's the one for the rest of her life that will have to, I'm only going to be on this earth for so much longer. She'll be on here a hell of a lot longer. And they've destroyed what she should have had growing up. And this is what's happened amongst millions and millions of kids. And see, the thing is like, we don't know yet because these tests are just happening now. You know what I'm saying? So we don't even know what these results in these long-term, but they're not good. The initial results that we're seeing in statistics are showing alcoholism, sex addicts, they're showing exactly what they're being removed for, intensified by 1,000.
Yeah. And I'm a bit of a historian about, America's treatment of children. So not just the last 10 years, last 20 years, last 50 years, but I mean 200 years. Okay. So I have some books, there have been some great books written. They're kind of hard to find, but there's one called Taking Children, and it's about America's history of removing children from slavery, the Indian children, to the orphan trains. PBS just put out a great documentary called Eugenics, and it really is about the sterilization of people and really this whole this whole this control over humanity that we've done here in America. And we know, look, American history, if you go back, we know that the institutionalization of people does not work. Okay. So there is a United States Supreme Court case out there, the Olmstead case. And that one is a case where there were adults who had mental deficiencies and they were institutionalized. And it went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said that if there's a person with a disability that can receive accommodations and live safely in society, in a community, that it was a violation of their civil rights to keep them in an institution. So we have that for adults, right? So somebody's got to reach out for kids and say that this foster care thing is an incarceration of children. We're we're forcing them into the homes of strangers, and that is an internment, an incarceration, and to look at it any other way is a fallacy. Now, again, I will always say there are people who are good foster parents, and there are children who are abused. But DCS doesn't like to take those children who are really, really abused because they're too damaged. And I have represented families where they have tried to take these very damaged children and raise them. They get no services. And 2 or 3 years later, they end up giving them back to DCS because they were sexually abused as a child. And when they're 13, they're sexually perpetrating on a child that's much younger than them. So they don't want children that are too damaged. They want the children that are well-behaved children that they can then sell out to the foster family, who will then adopt and get this money, and then they get their bonus checks. ASPA needs to be banned altogether. That needs to be stopped altogether.
That's the America Safe Families Act, right? That's what
right.
Yep. That's what
it's funny that you talk about, the kids being so damaged that they end up going back to the system. Through one of the organizations that I volunteer a lot of my time with, also in Tennessee, I actually had gotten word of a family where the mom had her rights terminated in Texas. I believe it was like 5 years later. Texas contacted the mom, who's now living in Missouri, and they begged her to take her kid back because now she was so damaged and so out of control that the state could no longer place her. They couldn't handle her. They gave her the kid back, and she couldn't even handle her own kid because the kid had become so damaged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I know about the family that you're talking about. I think I know about that family. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Connie, Carrie asked, which Carrie's our number one fan of this show. Carrie, how are you tonight? She asked, do you have links for all your information so we can put it up here? What do you have for, that way people can find your stuff, your things, and whatever else? I'll call you all the time.
Okay, so mostly everything is under my name. Okay, so it's very, very easy. I am on Facebook. I don't use X much. I do some on Instagram. I'm putting more on TikTok because I think TikTok is a super good platform for us, and we can I try to put out shorter clips, and it's all under Connie Regulate. So let's see if I can figure out let me pull up the YouTube. I think it's Connie.
See, if we had a 5-year-old kid here right now on the show with us, this would already be up there.
I know, exactly. This would happen.
No, I'll be cataloged perfectly. It's crazy the amount of platforms that they're giving us, and they're starting to be more lenient. But like TikTok, even like all the stuff going on. If China doesn't do this and that, it seems like every time we start to get something good going with a movement, they come in and they whack it out of us.
Yeah. So if you just look Connie Regulate, and my name's unusual enough, I think I'm the only Connie Regulate in the world. So, that's the best way to find me. But the one on YouTube is at Connie Regulate Family Forward. all one word. And let me see if I can find my TikTok account, and I'll give you what that is. I am going slow here.
Oh, it's where you just dumped out a ton of information. You're parched probably.
Hold on here. Yeah, it's not logged on, so yeah, but my name is the best. So Facebook, though, I do want people to know I do have a group on Facebook called the Family Forward Project, and then we have Family Forward every state: Family Forward Wisconsin, Family Forward Indiana, Family Forward Illinois. So the Family Forward Project is where I post most of the time, but we are trying to encourage people to join their own state just so that they can connect with people in that state. And kind of build an alliance there, and they have chat rooms and things where they can talk. Also, so I do want to go back to, though, you were talking about just writing the letters and what do we do. So, Family Forward Project goes to Washington, D.C. about 4 times a year. We've got a great core group of advocates who have just pooled their resources to make this happen. We do have a congressional bill that we at least have a sponsor for, called the Advocates for Families Act of 2024. We've got Barry Moore, who's a good conservative out of Alabama, and we are going up there in May to try to harbor some more sponsors. So one thing I want to reach out to people to do, if you will, and you can also get me through Messenger on Facebook. I check it pretty frequently. So if you are in a state that you're just willing to call your congressional office, and you're calling for a very specific purpose, and we can sort of give you the talking points to talk to them, find out who the legislative aides are, who would be looking at that topic, and that's how we do it. So we are there's about 12 of us that go in our group, and we cover probably 8 states. And so we will look at a certain committee, for instance, like the Ways and Means Committee, the Workforce and Education Committee, or the Judiciary Committee, the ones that we want to target. And then we will look for those Congress people. But in your particular state, I mean, this is really a call to action to you. In your particular state, if you're listening to this, you need to sit down and make a list of all of the congressmen and senators in your state. And then you should just reach out to us through Family Forward Project or through Messenger or through your state's Family Forward group. If you're in Maryland, go to Family Forward Maryland and say, you're willing to make those contacts and calls to your congressman. The reason we did this is CAPTA, which is the Title IV money, has technically expired. Okay, right. CAPTA expired in September of 2023. So the funds that they are issuing are now not congressionally authorized. Now, I'm going to tell everybody, I have racked my brain on how we can use this to our advantage, like filing some type of False Claims Act or something. And I'm still pondering that, right? Because every dollar that they ask for from Title IV now is not authorized, right?
Right. Okay.
So I'm struggling with that, and I'm still thinking about it. I haven't given up. But in the meantime, we want this family advocate bill in, and it's for anybody who takes Title IV money, which the 2 funds are actually linked together. Right. So if you guys can really just get activated, say, okay, I'm in Maryland, I'm going to make a list of my Congress people, and then we will, and keep your eye open, and we'll start doing, like, what do I say to them when I call? And it's really pretty easy on the initial call. You just say, I'm from the state of Maryland. I am working with Family Forward Project. We need to know who in your office would be working with the foster care, family welfare issues, and get that contact person, get their phone number, get their email address so that we can make contact with them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, definitely. That's it. So Family Forward, and then your state, and that's how people look that up. And
that's the Family Forward Project is the main group, and then Family Forward Maryland, Family Forward Wisconsin, Family Forward New Mexico, wherever you are.
Okay, cool. Now, is there anything in, yes, okay, you make contact. in particular? And then on your site, do you have like this bill that you guys are trying to push through that people can introduce to these people? Or like, I know that's
Well,
what the wagon in front of the horse or whatever that saying is, but you know, like what's the next, like, where are we going next? You know, like we
okay,
have,
so what they need to do first is
right?
keep it simple, right?
Yep.
Don't, because people who are new at this are not going to be prepared to answer the right questions, right? So
Right.
all they need to do is find out who we talk to and who we send an email to, because when
Perfect.
we get ready to go to DC and we have to do it close to our trip, we can't do it too much in advance. But about a week before we go to DC, we start pumping out emails but we want to send them to the exact person. So
Right.
so all we need is for people to call in advance. You can go online, you can find out who your congresspeople are. You can go to that congressperson's website. You can get the phone number for the office. And then all you say is, this is Connie Regularly. I'm with the Family Forward Project and we're working on a bill. And we would like to know who is the legislative aide in your office who would handle child welfare reform, foster care, family health and wellness. You know, who is that contact person?
Okay.
And so you just get the congressman's name, you get their phone number and the email address of the legislative aide, and then we will take the next step.
Perfect. So no heroes, do the right thing, keep it small, keep it simple, let them handle it.
Yeah, because what I have found is people are afraid to make those phone calls, right? They're afraid to make those phone calls because they're afraid they're going to be asked a question they can't answer. So I don't want to put anybody in a place where they are even faced with the possibility of getting a question they can't answer.
Right. No, that's a good thing. Because a lot of these people too are fragile. They're just coming out of the box and from, you know, it's terrible. You know, it's very terrible. So this is really cool. Like, this is allowing people to become active again in their communities. You know, like the people that have just lodged themselves in. You know, like give them something to do. It's so hard. It's just so hard. You know, when your kid's taken, and you know, you just every day that's all you do is think about them. You know, so you just consume your mind with what can you do to try to make steps to. You know, it's a good thing. It's a good thing what you're doing. It's a good thing what a lot of people are doing. Carrie says that she can't find one for Iowa, Connie. What does that mean? Does that mean that Carrie's going to have to start that for you guys?
Oh, no, please don't. I'm sure we have one. Hang on. Because if somebody else starts it, then we can't control what's going on.
Right.
Okay, I'm just going to check here. Family Forward. I know there's got to be one for Iowa. Okay, there is one for Family Forward Iowa. It has, I don't know, can you see it?
Yeah, you can. It's got a little green thing on it. There's green on it. That's good.
And it's
okay,
under
cool.
Family Forward Iowa. Has 48 members, and
those are just groups on Facebook, right? What's your
these are just Facebook groups. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And if you find that your group is not that active, you know, then just get into the Family Forward Project group and start communicating with them. And actually, some people will come into there, and then you look for other people to, you know, join your state group.
Right on. Cool.
And, you know, as we continue, you know, to just try to reach out and try to organize our thoughts, you know, what do we do to reach out those next set of families, right, that are coming up in this? What are we going to do? And I mean, ultimately, we're going to have to be willing to go to these courts. We figure out the days that they're having these court hearings and go to these courts with a little card to pass out, right, to, you know, just direct them to either you or our Family Forward Project or some video or something. Yep. So
that's awesome. What else you got? We're getting to our time here. Is there any other side things that you want to make sure that the world hears, or whomever? Or
okay,
whatever
so all right, so yeah, I'll just go back for what people to keep an eye on as I finish up. So I'm preparing 2 lawsuits. So one of them is a lawsuit, my client and myself, for malicious prosecution for the fake crime that they created. So most people know a little bit about that. The other lawsuit, a lot of people don't know about, because what happened is I had this very aggressive judge who was who was part of the other case, but he went out and created another fake crime against me in 2022. And I represented myself, and I finally got it kicked out. So that is it's a second malicious prosecution case. Once these two lawsuits are completed and filed with the federal court, of course, they will tell the story, and they will both be open for the public to review, and people will be able to really see this story. I know that I got a lot of people didn't understand everything that was going on. It's hard to just explain it because there are so many details, so many people involved, so many kind of dates involved, because you have to watch how this whole thing played out. So it's hard for people to just hear it. And I know we don't like to read much anymore, but I'm going to make you do it. So once these federal lawsuits are done, and you can people can flip through and read this and read just how bizarre it is, then, they'll see just how much corruption we're dealing with at the court system. And we just need to, I just beg people to persevere, to reach out to the next person, do what I said, do a 7-2 process a week, try to just say something to 7 people, try to get 2 people that you can talk to. And it might be that they say to call somebody, but they are out there, they're all over the place. Find out who your state legislator is, because I'm telling you, some of these families are calling state legislators, and the state legislators don't know what to do with them. So if you contact your state legislator and say, look, I'm working with families who struggled through this. I'm a person who struggled through it. If you just want to direct people to me, we'll try to give them some hope, some training, some ability to move forward, and just take that next step beyond your own self. And that's what it's going to take.
That's awesome. I love it. That's so amazing. It's so good, the work you're doing with people. Herbert, are you still there, buddy? I know you're crying.
I'm here. I'm here.
Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask? All right. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask, Connie?
Yes, I have 2 questions. The first one is, when is she coming back on? Next Friday?
Who coming back on?
Me? Yeah, Connie, you want to come on in whenever you like.
When can we have a Connie Friday?
A Connie Friday. That's a great idea.
Yeah. I'm down with. We're definitely down with that. Definitely down with that. If you will be in touch.
So can we get you back on? Can we get you back on next Friday, Connie?
Yeah, if you guys just remind me, make sure you hit me up and remind me during the week.
Okay. Okay. And my second question, because I know we have to go, is I'm very confused with the deep state. What is meant by the deep state?
Yeah. So, the deep state is oops, I'm getting a little feedback.
Yeah, we got it. I got you. Go ahead and answer it now. Go ahead for it.
So the deep state is really the bureaucrats, right, who are controlling it, the ones that get in place and get in position and think that they're insulated from anything happening. Like the people in central office at the Department of Children's Services. Honestly, I think the judges are part of the deep state because they think that they are so insulated from accountability. So I say anybody in the government who is not accountable is the deep state. That's just the best way to describe it, because the only people that have any accountability that are in our government and politics are the representatives that have to run every 2 stinking years. And even they have somewhat insulation because there's so much corporate money. If they take a lot of PAC money and corporate money, then they are, not going to be responsive either. But the ones who are not accountable and not responsive to the voters, that's the deep state. Now, and so I do want to say what's coming up next week. So I'm going to put a card in. I'm going to try to speak on this new internment camp boarding school they're going to have. And so also, I'm also going to try to clip some of my speeches. And so I don't know if you can make that happen on this platform, but maybe if we could show people a couple of my 3-minute speeches.
Absolutely.
I also had 3 kids speak this week. 3 teenagers spoke. I also took my granddaughter one day and sat her down beside me when I spoke. And I told them, it's like, this is why I do what I do. So, if we could start showing people, some of the activity that I'm doing, I think that would be really helpful.
Absolutely. We can definitely do that. We'll put it up on this YouTube channel. So I'll get in touch with you this week and we can work on that for sure. Melissa, do you have any last minute things or last questions for Connie that you wanted to ask?
No, I mean, I follow her pretty closely with a lot of what she does through her Family Forward. Because one of the ladies that actually works in her Family Forward Alabama group is actually one of my best friends, Kim Page. So I'm very familiar with what's going on. And actually, Kim had asked if now that everything was exonerated, if you had planned to run on the next election or challenge the election to still try for a judicial seat.
Oh, thank you for asking that. You know what? I'm not done with those evildoers. I don't know. I'm not gonna put on live public streaming here what my plans are in that regard because they figure out ways to stalk me and figure out what I'm talking about and saying. All I'll say is this: is I'm not done with those evildoers.
Excellent. I love that.
And it's sad how corrupt the judicial system is getting, especially with the money that comes in from these children. Like in my case here in Southern Alabama, the judge for our county got elected, stepped down right after he was elected, and then left it an empty seat. So Governor Ivy appointed Judge Hyde to bench. Well, Judge Hyde was this county's DHR attorney, so he went direct from being their attorney to being the judge that rules on all of their cases. He's currently been holding my kids hostage for 2 years on a shelter order and refused to hold court.
Oh, are you kidding me?
To the point that I got a trial de novo against him, and now we're in front of the circuit judge, and we just made constitutional arguments, so that threw another month delay in it. But literally, I've only ever had an emergency hearing back in May and June of 22, and the judge actually put out an order that he refused to hold court until my 18-year-old daughter came back and submitted to his authority when she lived in Michigan. And at the time, my 2 kids that were trapped in the system, because I tried to get voluntary services for my daughter when she was down here, they was 2 years old and newborn. They are now 2 and 4.
Oh my gosh. I hate these people so much. I hate them. I hate them.
And my 18-year-old ran away from the system because she got beat so bad in a group home, they had to do brain surgery because it caused a brain aneurysm to rupture. While they had her stuck in a psych ward. They just moved my daughter last week because they had her in a home that is now under allegations of child molestation. But yet the workers go to court and they openly testify. There's absolutely 0 allegations against us. They're just arguing that because they've had the kids so long, they don't have to give them back because of the Family First Act.
Yeah, well, that's not what's in the Family First Act. So, yeah, that's that. Yeah,
They just all suck. They just all suck. It just all sucks. It's every story's the story. I mean, and Melissa's case sucks. There's just no good about this. This system was set up so that kids that were actually being abused would be pulled forward and helped and serviced and families serviced and helped. And they're not doing it. That's the bottom line.
Well, and the courts, and the court system. And, I started my advocacy really against the lack of accountability with the court system. And, and now that I have every time I go up to the state legislature and I start looking at the laws they're writing, and they write all these laws that say, well, unless a court orders otherwise, and every time I read that, I just like totally cringe, right? Because I'm like, every time it's all they're doing up at the General Assembly is creating job security and creating more chaos, right? So it's just a matter of increased chaos. And these courts are just out of control. They're just out of control. Now, I have the same Judge Woodruff, the same judge who made the fake crime number 1, the same judge who made up the fake crime number 2. He also did this other thing where he dismissed a public records case. He fined me. He told me I couldn't file anything. He threatened me not to appeal. And that case, I appealed it. And it was argued before the Court of Appeals on May the 3rd of last year, 2023, and they're refusing to give me an opinion on it. And I sent an email to the clerk, and I'm like, can you check on this case? And he wrote me back an email basically saying, well, they don't have any time limits on their decision. A year. And I have done over 45 appeals. I have never seen an appeal take a year, ever take a year. So, the court system is a huge problem. And then you layer on top of that DCS, CPS, and you've got a monster, you've got a behemoth who is just unmanageable, just totally unmanageable. So, we have much work to do. And honestly, we just can't stop. I mean, look at history. If we don't change it, nothing's going to change it. And I said years ago a couple things. I said, number 1, change is not going to come from Washington, D.C. It's not going to come from our state capitals. It's going to come from the heart of America. And the other thing I said is we can't attack this elephant, this monster directly. We have to attack it tangentially. We have to find a way to come along the side and rub this thing so hard on the side that we irritate it, that we begin to move it. And when I'm sitting in Washington, D.C., and most of these aides are fairly young and we're educating them, I always say, look, I may not be able to turn the Titanic around, but if I can shift it 3 degrees off course, I may save an iceberg, a warship full of kids, right? So keeping and you brave souls who've been in this situation and actually lost children. The juvenile court tried to take my kids away from me when my teenagers did their runaway stunts back when they were young teenagers, and they threatened me. But boy, I can tell you, I know that fierce mama came out on me and right away, and I launched at them. But I can't imagine if I would not have had the strength that I had to just go right in their face. So I certainly want people to be prepared and educated and find somebody who can just give them some support through this process, just to give them encouragement and keep them going and keep them moving, is very important. And so, we just need to stay at it.
Yes, we do. All right, Connie, thank you so much for joining us tonight. That was awesome. I think I'm going to be like Herbert. I'm going to press on you that you're coming back, and maybe we do figure out some sort of a time slot, a Connie day. I think that would be great, because you got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do, and we'll just show people that this is how we do it.
Yeah.
So thank you, Connie. I'll be in touch with you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, that was nice. That was great, huh, Melissa? That was great. No.
Yeah.
You gotta fix your squeak.
Yeah.
We're gonna figure out how we're gonna fix that. But that was
So she's coming back? Is she coming back next Friday?
I don't know what day she's coming back, but she's coming back. But Melissa, thank you. I know that you probably didn't even really want to do this tonight, but thank you for helping out with that. And I'll give you a call here after the show, all right?
All right. Catch you later, Darren.
All right, bye. All right, everybody. Well, you just heard from one of the best in the biz for fighting this corruption and fighting this the CPS fight. I mean, Connie's been doing it for a long time. And if there's anybody that knows anything that can talk about it, it's her. So, I mean, I really don't even have much more to say after that. Just keep CPS out of your house and try and have yourselves a good weekend without CPS taking your kids. Yeah, I'm the CPS Punisher. I'm out of here. Have a good weekend.
In the United States, CPS makes upwards of $3 billion per day on trafficking and selling our children. The corruption may start with the caseworker, but goes through the judicial system, passing the governor through the Senate and into the White House. The entire system has a hand in the business known as CPS.
Our children are stolen every minute of a 24-hour day. They are being robbed of their innocence, their trust, their happiness. As parents, we are isolated and betrayed by a government we trust. States are balancing budgets on kids' lives. Only 12% of the kids taken will be reunified. Title IV funding is being riveted with fraud.